The Cosmic Discovery. Jax Nova was an ordinary guy with an extraordinary dream. In the retro-futuristic city of Neon Drift, where music-powered machines and holographic billboards lit up the skies, Jax spent his days fixing old tech in his dusty garage. By night, he strummed his battered guitar, dreaming of writing the song that could change the world. But life, as always, seemed to have other plans. One rainy evening, as Jax tuned his guitar, a strange sound interrupted the usual hum of his garage. It wasn't a car outside or the crackle of a faulty wire. No, it was something otherworldly. A low, resonant hum seemed to vibrate through the walls. Jax set his guitar down and followed the sound. It led him to the far corner of his garage, where a pile of forgotten junk lay gathering dust. "What the heck is that?" he muttered, pulling aside a stack of old circuit boards and rusted gears. There, hidden beneath layers of debris, was a smooth, glowing rock. Its surface shimmered like liquid silver, and it pulsed with a rhythm that almost felt alive. Jax hesitated before touching it. "You're not radioactive or something, right?" he joked nervously. He reached out, and as his fingers brushed the rock, a jolt of energy surged through his body. He stumbled back, heart pounding. The rock began to hum louder, and suddenly, a holographic figure emerged from it. A tall, translucent alien with sharp features and glowing eyes. Jax blinked. "What in the name of synth beats is this?" The alien spoke, its voice echoing in the small garage. "You have awakened the cosmic harmony stone. Its melody holds the power to shape worlds, but in the wrong hands, it will bring ruin." Melody? Power? Worlds? Jax repeated, staring at the hologram as if it had just told him he was the king of space. "I think you've got the wrong guy." The alien's gaze bore into him. "No mistake. You are its chosen keeper. Protect it, or your world will fall." Before Jax could respond, the hologram flickered and disappeared. The rock returned to its silent glow, leaving him alone with 1,000 questions. Jax sat down, his hands trembling. "Okay, Jax, you're either losing your mind, or you've just stumbled into the weirdest thing ever." As he tried to make sense of it all, a loud thud echoed from outside. Jax froze. He hadn't heard a car pull up or footsteps approach. Grabbing a wrench for protection, he cautiously opened the garage door a crack. Outside, the rain fell in sheets, and shadows danced under the neon glow of the city's lights. A sleek, black drone hovered silently, its red eye scanning the area. Jax's heart raced as the drone's gaze locked onto his garage. It let out a sharp beep, and more drones appeared, their mechanical wings slicing through the air like knives. "Oh, great," Jax muttered, closing the door quickly. "Now robots are after me. What's next? Aliens dropping out of the sky." He grabbed the rock and shoved it into his backpack. Whatever was happening, he didn't want to find out what those drones were capable of. Slinging the bag over his shoulder, he bolted out the back door into the rainy night. The alleys of Neon Drift were a maze of glowing graffiti and flickering signs. Jax ran blindly, his wet sneakers splashing through puddles. The hum of the drones grew louder, closer. He ducked into a narrow passage and pressed himself against the wall, trying to catch his breath. The rock in his bag pulsed faintly, as if it were alive. "Why me?" he whispered, clutching the strap of his backpack. "I didn't ask for any of this." Just as he thought he might have lost the drones, a figure stepped out of the shadows ahead of him. A woman, dressed in a black leather jacket and armed with a strange glowing device strapped to her wrist. She looked at Jax with sharp, calculating eyes. "You have the rock," she said, her voice steady and firm. Jax's grip tightened on the wrench in his hand. "Who are you? Are you with the drones?" "No," the woman replied. "But if you don't want to end up as scrap metal, you'll come with me." "Now." Jax hesitated. "Why should I trust you?" "Because," she said, glancing at the sky, "those things won't stop until they have what's in your bag. And if they get it, we're all doomed." As if to prove her point, The sound of drones grew deafening. Red lights swept through the alley, and Jax knew he didn't have a choice. He followed the woman as she led him deeper into the labyrinth of the city. "Who are you?" Jax asked as they ran. "Name's Luna," she said without looking back. "And if you want to survive, you better keep up." Jax didn't know who this Luna was or why she seemed to know so much about the rock, but one thing was clear: his quiet, ordinary life was over. And this was just the beginning. The chase begins. The rain poured relentlessly as Jax sprinted after Luna, his heart pounding harder than the rhythmic hum of Neon Drift's hovering trains. The neon lights above reflected off the slick streets, turning the city into a glowing maze of colors. Luna moved with the precision of someone who knew exactly where she was going, weaving through alleys and leaping over obstacles like a seasoned escape artist. Jax struggled to keep up, clutching the straps of his backpack as if his life depended on it, which he was beginning to realize it probably did. "Where are we even going?" Jax shouted, his voice barely audible over the rain and the mechanical whir of drones closing in behind them. "To safety," Luna replied curtly, glancing over her shoulder. Her wrist device glowed faintly as she tapped a few buttons on it. "Unless you want those tin cans to get their hands on that rock." Jax didn't argue. He had no idea who Luna was, but she seemed to know more about the situation than he did. Besides, arguing wasn't an option when they were being chased by what looked like killer drones. The alley opened into a wider street, where Luna suddenly stopped and pressed herself against a wall. Jax, still in full sprint, nearly collided with her. She held a finger to her lips, signaling him to stay silent. Peering around the corner, Jax saw two large drones hovering in the middle of the street. Their red scanner lights swept across the area, searching. "What now?" Jax whispered, barely catching his breath. Luna's eyes darted to a nearby maintenance hatch on the ground. "We go underground." "What? Underground? You mean into the sewers?" "Unless you have a better idea, yes," she snapped, already moving toward the hatch. She knelt and began unlocking it with her wrist device. The hatch hissed open, revealing a dark tunnel below. Jax hesitated. "This just keeps getting better." "Move it, Nova," Luna hissed, her tone sharp. "Or do you want to be drone food?" He didn't need to be told twice. Climbing down into the tunnel, he was immediately hit by a musty metallic smell. Luna followed, sealing the hatch above them, just as the sound of drones grew deafening. The tunnels were dimly lit, with faint blue lights flickering along the walls. Water dripped from unseen pipes, and the air was thick with humidity. Jax's shoes splashed in shallow puddles as they walked. Luna led the way, her wrist device glowing like a beacon in the dark. "So," Jax said, breaking the silence, "are you going to tell me what's going on? Or do we just keep running until the end of time?" Luna glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" Jax shot back, his frustration evident. "1 minute I'm a guy trying to write songs in his garage, and the next I'm running for my life with a glowing rock in my bag and a stranger who apparently knows everything about it." Luna stopped walking and turned to face him. "That glowing rock, as you call it, is the Cosmic Harmony Stone. It's not just any rock. It's an artifact left behind by an ancient race. Its melody has the power to control and reshape reality itself." Jax blinked. "Control reality? You've got to be kidding." "Do I look like I'm joking?" Luna said, her tone icy. "That rock is the reason you're still alive. It chose you, Jax." "Chose me?" he scoffed. "I'm a musician, not some chosen one in a sci-fi movie." Luna sighed. "Look, I don't care what you think you are. The fact is, Synthcore is after that stone, and if they get it, they'll use it to take over not just this city, but every city, every planet, everything." Jax's stomach churned. Synthcorp was already notorious for controlling most of Neon Drift, using its advanced tech to keep the population under its thumb. The thought of them wielding something as powerful as the stone was terrifying. Okay, Jack said, his voice shaking slightly. But why me? Why not someone who actually knows what they're doing? That's the thing about the stone, Luna replied. It doesn't pick just anyone. It picks those who can hear its melody, those who can unlock its power. You're a musician, right? Maybe that's why. Jax opened his mouth to argue but stopped. Deep down, he knew she was right. When he touched the stone, he had felt something, an unexplainable connection, like the rock was vibrating with a tune only he could hear. Their conversation was cut short by a sudden rumble overhead. The faint sound of drones echoed through the tunnels, growing louder by the second. They're tracking us, Luna muttered, her expression darkening. We need to move. Now. Great, Jack said, gripping his backpack tighter. More running. They broke into a sprint, the tunnels twisting and turning like an endless labyrinth. Luna's wrist device beeped intermittently as she navigated, leading them through narrow passages and hidden doors. Just as Jax thought they might be safe, a bright red light flooded the tunnel ahead. A drone hovered there, its scanner locked on them. It let out a high-pitched alarm. And moments later, more drones appeared, their mechanical wings slicing through the air. Luna cursed under her breath. We're out of time. What do we do? Jax asked, panic rising in his voice. Luna tapped furiously on her wrist device. Hold on to something. Hold on to what? Jax shouted, just as the ground beneath them lit up with a blinding blue light. The air crackled with energy, and before Jax could process what was happening, they were surrounded by a swirling vortex. In an instant, the drones, the tunnel, and the city disappeared. Jax stumbled to the ground, dizzy and disoriented. When he looked up, he wasn't in Neon Drift anymore. He was standing in a city that floated in the clouds, its towering buildings glowing with an otherworldly light. Welcome to the Celestial Haven, Luna said, offering him a hand. This is where the real journey begins. The retro future. Jax Nova staggered to his feet, his head spinning as he took in his surroundings. The city around him seemed to defy logic. Towering skyscrapers floated above a sea of swirling clouds, their neon lights casting long, glowing reflections onto the mist below. Strange vehicles zipped through the air, leaving trails of colorful light behind them. Everywhere he looked, people moved with a casual ease, as though living in a floating city was the most normal thing in the universe. What? Where are we? Jax asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He clutched his backpack, feeling the comforting weight of the stone inside. This, Luna said, gesturing around them, is the Celestial Haven, a hidden refuge for those who oppose SynthCorp. It's off the grid, completely invisible to their surveillance. Jax raised an eyebrow. Invisible? You mean they just can't find this place? They can't even detect it, Luna replied, her tone sharp. The Haven was built by rebels who hacked into SynthCorp's AI systems and created blind spots in their network. This is the only safe place left. As they walked through the bustling streets of the floating city, Jax couldn't help but notice how different it was from Neon Drift. Music filled the air, not just playing in the background, but alive. Giant speakers pulsed with synchronized beats, and the buildings themselves seemed to vibrate in harmony. People carried strange instruments that looked like hybrids of guitars and computers, and holographic dancers moved to rhythms only they could hear. It's all powered by sound, Luna explained, noticing his awestruck expression. The entire city runs on music. The energy from harmonized frequencies fuels everything here. Music powers the city, Jax asked incredulously. That's insane. It's the future, Luna said with a smirk. Though from the look of you, I'm guessing you're still catching up. Jax was about to reply when a group of people approached them. They were dressed in patchwork outfits made from metallic fabrics, their faces marked with glowing tattoos. The tallest among them, a man with silver hair and a glowing bass guitar strapped to his back, stepped forward. Luna, he said, his voice low and gravelly. You're late. Nice to see you too, Orion, Luna replied dryly. We had a slight drone problem. This is Jax Nova. He's the one. Orion's piercing blue eyes studied Jax. The one? You're joking, right? He looks like he couldn't play a scale if his life depended on it. Hey, Jax protested. I can play just fine. Thank you very much. Enough, Luna interrupted. He has the stone, and it's active. Whether you like it or not, he's the one who has to unlock the melody. Orion didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Fine. Let's see what he can do. Before Jax could ask what that meant, the group led him and Luna into a massive circular building at the city center. Inside, the walls were lined with glowing panels that pulsated with light, creating an eerie, hypnotic effect. In the middle of the room was a raised platform, and atop it was a strange device that looked like a piano fused with a control panel. This is the Harmony Nexus, Orion explained. It's connected to the city's core. If you're really the one, the stone will resonate with it. Resonate? Jax asked, clutching his backpack protectively. What does that even mean? Play, Luna said simply, nodding toward the platform. The stone reacts to music. If you're meant to unlock its power, it'll respond. Jax hesitated. What if it doesn't? Then we're all doomed, Orion said bluntly. No pressure, huh? Jax muttered, climbing onto the platform. He placed the stone on the device, which began to glow faintly. Taking a deep breath, he ran his fingers over the keys. A soft, haunting melody filled the air. At first, nothing happened. But as Jax played, the stone began to pulse in time with the music. Its glow grew brighter, and the walls of the room vibrated with energy. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from the stone, projecting a holographic map into the air. What is that? Jax asked, his hands frozen on the keys. It's a star map, Luna said, her voice filled with awe. The stone is showing us something. Coordinates, Orion added, pointing to the glowing lines on the map. It's leading us somewhere. Somewhere like what? Jax asked, stepping back from the device. Orion turned to face him, his expression grim. Somewhere dangerous. If SynthCorp gets there first, it's over. Before anyone could say more, alarms blared throughout the building. The glowing panels on the walls flashed red, and a voice echoed through the room. SynthCorp drones detected. Perimeter breach imminent. Luna grabbed Jax's arm. We have to go. Now. But the map, Jax began. It's in the Nexus, Orion said, pulling the glowing star map from the air and storing it on a small device. Let's move. The group burst out of the building into chaos. SynthCorp drones swarmed the skies, their weapons firing at anything that moved. People screamed and scattered as explosions rocked the floating platforms. Luna and Orion led Jax through the chaos, their weapons blazing as they fought off the drones. Jax clutched his backpack tightly, his heart racing. He wasn't sure how he had gone from playing guitar in his garage to running for his life in a floating city under siege. But one thing was clear. There was no turning back now. The betrayal. The celestial haven was in chaos. SynthCorp's drones swarmed like mechanical locusts, firing bursts of plasma that lit up the floating city's neon streets. Explosions erupted around every corner, sending shockwaves through the air. Jax Nova clutched the cosmic harmony stone tightly in his backpack as he ran alongside Luna and Orion, his heart pounding in his chest. What now? Jax yelled, dodging a falling piece of debris. This place was supposed to be safe. It was. Luna shot back, her wrist device glowing as she hacked into a nearby terminal. Until someone sold us out. Someone from the Haven? Jax asked, incredulous. Why would they do that? Because SynthCorp doesn't just offer threats, Orion said grimly, firing his glowing bass guitar like a weapon. They offer rewards. Wealth, power, safety. Some people can't resist. The thought made Jax sick. He had barely started to understand the importance of the stone, but even he knew that handing it over to SynthCorp was a death sentence for more than just the Haven. He tightened his grip on the straps of his backpack and pushed forward. Luna led them down a narrow alleyway that ended in a steel door. She pressed her wrist device against the lock, and the door slid open to reveal a hidden elevator. Inside, she barked. The group piled in, and Luna hit a sequence of buttons. The elevator hummed to life, descending rapidly into the depths of the city. Jax leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. "Where are we going?" he asked, his voice shaky. "To the Haven's core," Luna replied. "It's the only place left that's secure, at least for now." The elevator came to a stop with a jolt, and the doors slid open to reveal a massive underground chamber. The walls were lined with glowing panels, and in the center of the room was a circular platform surrounded by control consoles. Dozens of rebels worked frantically, their faces lit by the glow of their holographic screens. "This is the Nexus Core," Orion explained. "It controls the Haven's defenses. If we can't hold them off from here, we're finished." As the group approached the platform, a tall, wiry man with a scar running down his face stepped forward. His name was Kylan, one of the Haven's senior leaders. He didn't look pleased to see them. "Luna," Kylan said, his voice dripping with suspicion. "You brought the boy here." "He's not just the boy," Luna snapped. "He's the stone's keeper. If we're going to stop SynthCorp, we need him." Kylan's eyes narrowed as he looked at Jax. "This kid is the one we're supposed to rely on. He doesn't look like much." Jax bristled but said nothing. He was too overwhelmed to argue, and he didn't exactly feel like a hero at the moment. "Enough," Orion said firmly. The stone revealed a star map. SynthCorp is after it, and they won't stop until they have it. We need to act now. Kylan hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But if this goes south, it's on you." Jax felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't like the way Kylan was looking at him, or the way Luna seemed to be avoiding his gaze. Something wasn't right. As the rebels worked to bolster the Haven's defenses, Jax was ushered to a small room off to the side. It was quiet, the hum of the Nexus Core a faint background noise. He finally had a moment to think, to process everything that had happened. He pulled the stone from his backpack and held it in his hands. It glowed faintly, its rhythmic pulse calming yet mysterious. "What are you really?" Jax murmured, running his fingers over its smooth surface. Before he could dwell on it further, the door hissed open. Luna entered, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. Jax frowned. "About what?" Luna hesitated, something like guilt flickering in her eyes. "About the stone. About why SynthCorp is here." Jax's stomach sank. "You said someone sold us out. Do you know who it was?" Luna didn't answer immediately. Instead, she sat down across from him, her gaze fixed on the stone. "You need to understand something, Jax. This isn't just about the Haven. It's bigger than that. SynthCorp has resources, technology. They'll stop at nothing to control the stone's power." Jax's eyes narrowed. "What are you trying to say?" Luna sighed. "I used to work for them." The words hit Jax like a punch to the gut. He stared at her, disbelief written all over his face. "You what?" "I didn't have a choice," Luna said quickly. "They had leverage over me. People I cared about. I worked for them for years, but I got out. I thought I was done with them. But when they learned about the stone, they came after me. That's why I brought you here. I thought this place would be safe." Jax stood up, his heart racing. "So you're the one who told them about the Haven?" "No," Luna said sharply. "I didn't." She stopped, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Before Jax could respond, the door burst open, and Kylan stormed in, flanked by armed rebels. "What's going on?" Jax demanded. Kylan ignored him and pointed at Luna. "She's the traitor. We intercepted a transmission from SynthCorp. It came from her device." Luna's face went pale. That's not possible. I didn't. Save it, Kylan snapped. You're coming with us. Jax stepped in front of her. Wait, she said she used to work for them, but she's not with them anymore. Maybe. Enough, Nova, Kylan said coldly. You don't get to make this call. As they dragged Luna away, Jax felt a surge of anger and confusion. Had Luna betrayed them, or was she being set up? And if she wasn't the traitor, then who was? He looked down at the stone, its glow steady and unwavering. One thing was certain. The stakes were higher than ever, and the truth was buried in a tangle of lies. The hidden truth. Jax sat in the dimly lit chamber of the Nexus core, the cosmic harmony stone glowing faintly on the table before him. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, confusion, and a nagging sense of betrayal. Luna was gone, dragged away by Kylan and his rebel guards, accused of being a traitor. But something about it didn't sit right with him. He glanced at Orion, who stood nearby, watching the chaos on a holographic screen as SynthCorp's drones continued their relentless assault on the Haven. Do you really think Luna betrayed us? Jax asked, breaking the tense silence. Orion didn't turn around. It doesn't matter what I think. Kylan has his orders, and we don't have time to debate it. Right now, the priority is keeping that stone out of SynthCorp's hands. Jax clenched his fists. But what if they're wrong? What if someone else? Enough, kid, Orion interrupted, finally looking at him. His piercing blue eyes were cold. You're here because of that stone. You don't know how this world works, and you don't know Luna like I do. She's always had her secrets. Before Jax could respond, a rebel technician called out from across the room. Orion, we've intercepted another signal. It's coming from inside the Haven. Orion's jaw tightened. Patch it through. The holographic screen flickered, displaying a transmission from SynthCorp. The image of a man appeared, a tall figure in a sleek black suit, his face partially hidden by a metallic mask. His voice was calm but carried an edge of menace. People of the Haven, the man began, his tone almost mocking. I am Dr. Zenith, leader of SynthCorp. Surrender the Cosmic Harmony Stone, and I will spare what remains of your pathetic city. Resist, and I promise you, no one will survive. The rebels in the room exchanged nervous glances. The threat was clear, and the fear in their eyes was palpable. Jax's heart raced as he looked at the masked man. That's the guy behind all this. Dr. Zenith, Orion confirmed, his voice grim. The mastermind of SynthCorp. He'll do anything to get his hands on the stone. Jax swallowed hard. Why is it so important to him? Orion hesitated, then nodded toward the glowing stone. Because the melody inside it isn't just powerful, it's alive. It can reshape reality, bend the laws of physics, and even rewrite the fabric of existence itself. If Zenith gets it, he won't just control Neon Drift. He'll control everything. Jax stared at the stone, the weight of its significance pressing down on him. He thought back to the holographic star map it had revealed earlier, the mysterious coordinates pointing to a place far beyond anything he could comprehend. What about the map? Jax asked. Where does it lead? Orion crossed his arms. To the source of the stone's power. If we can reach it first, we might stand a chance of stopping SynthCorp, but it's a gamble. We don't even know what's out there. Jax looked down at the stone, its glow pulsing gently in time with his heartbeat. He felt a strange connection to it, as though it were trying to tell him something. We have to go, he said firmly. We can't just sit here and wait for SynthCorp to destroy us. Orion nodded slowly. Agreed. But first, we need to secure the Haven and figure out who's feeding information to Zenith. Jax's thoughts immediately went to Luna. Was she really working with SynthCorp, or was she being framed? He couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. Meanwhile, in the Haven's detention wing, Luna sat alone in a cold steel cell, her wrists bound by glowing energy cuffs. Her mind raced as she replayed the events leading up to her capture. She knew she hadn't sent the transmission Kylan claimed to have intercepted. But someone had. Someone who wanted her out of the way. The door to her cell slid open, and Kylan entered, flanked by 2 armed guards. "Comfortable?" he asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Luna glared at him. "You're making a mistake, Kylan. I didn't send that signal." "Of course you'd say that," Kylan replied, stepping closer. "But the evidence says otherwise. You've always been too clever for your own good, Luna. Always hiding something." Luna leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "And you've always been too paranoid. What if the traitor is still out there? What if they're feeding SynthCorp more information right now while you're busy blaming me?" Kylan hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, but before he could respond, an explosion rocked the building. The guard stumbled, and Luna used the distraction to lunge forward, slamming her cuffed wrists into Kylan's chest. He fell backward, winded, as Luna grabbed his access card and bolted out of the cell. Alarms blared as she raced through the corridors, dodging panicked rebels and armed guards. She had to find Jax and the stone before it was too late. Back in the Nexus core, the alarms reached the core just as Orion was organizing a defensive strategy. Jax looked around, alarmed. "What now?" Orion's wrist device beeped. "Security breach in the detention wing. Luna's escaped." Jax felt a surge of relief mixed with apprehension. "We have to find her." Orion shot him a warning look. "If she's the traitor." "She's not," Jax snapped. "I don't know how I know, but I do. She's trying to help us." Orion hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. But if you're wrong, it's on you." Before they could move, the room shook violently. The holographic screen lit up with an alert. SynthCorp ground forces detected. Breach in Sector 7 imminent. Orion grabbed Jax by the shoulder. "We don't have time for this. We need to secure the stone and evacuate." Jax's mind raced. The stone, the map, the betrayal, none of it made sense. But one thing was clear. The fate of the Haven, and possibly the entire world, rested on the decisions he made next. The final note. The Nexus core was in utter chaos. Sirens blared, red lights flashed across the walls, and the holographic map above the central console flickered with warnings of multiple breaches. SynthCorp's forces were closing in, and Jax Nova could feel the pressure mounting like a crushing weight on his chest. Orion barked orders to the rebels, his voice steady despite the rising panic. "Seal the eastern corridor. Divert power to the shield generators. We hold this position until the evac is ready." Jax stood frozen, clutching the Cosmic Harmony Stone in his hands. The glowing artifact pulsed with energy, its rhythm matching the frantic beat of his heart. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything happening around him was his fault. If only he had never found the stone, maybe the Haven wouldn't be under attack. "Jax," Orion's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "Get over here. We need you at the console." Jax hesitated, then ran to the circular platform in the center of the room. The holographic star map he had activated earlier hovered above it, its lines and coordinates glowing faintly. "What am I supposed to do?" Jax asked, his voice shaking. "You're the only one who can decode the full melody," Orion said. "If we can unlock the stone's power, we might be able to stop SynthCorp before they take the Haven." Jax's stomach churned. "And if I can't?" "Then we're all dead," Orion said bluntly. Jax swallowed hard and placed the stone on the console. As soon as it touched the surface, the room was filled with a low, haunting hum. The holographic map shifted, its lines reconfiguring into a complex series of musical notes. "Play," Orion urged, handing Jax a strange instrument that looked like a hybrid of a keyboard and a guitar. "Follow the notes. Let the stone guide you." Jax took the instrument reluctantly, his fingers trembling as he began to play. The melody was unlike anything he had ever heard, otherworldly, yet familiar, as if it had always been a part of him. The stone glowed brighter with each note, its pulses sensing with the rhythm of the music. For a moment, it felt like everything might actually work. But then the console's alarms blared louder, and a voice echoed through the chamber. Breach in Sector 7. Synth Corp forces have entered the Nexus core perimeter. Orion cursed under his breath. They're here. The betrayal revealed. The doors to the Nexus core burst open, and armed Synth Corp soldiers stormed in, their sleek black armor glinting under the red lights. Behind them walked Dr. Zenith, his metallic mask gleaming ominously. He exuded an aura of calm control, his movements precise and deliberate. "Impressive," Zenith said, his voice smooth and commanding. "You've managed to activate the stone. I must admit, I didn't expect a musician to unlock its secrets." Jax stepped back, clutching the instrument tightly. "Stay away from it." Zenith chuckled. "Oh, Jax, you still don't understand, do you? The stone doesn't belong to you. It never did. It belongs to those who have the vision and power to wield it properly." As Zenith advanced, Orion and the rebels opened fire. The room erupted into chaos, plasma bolts flying in every direction. Jax ducked behind the console, his heart racing as he tried to process what was happening. In the midst of the chaos, a familiar voice shouted, "Stop!" Jax looked up to see Luna, standing at the entrance with Kalen and several rebel guards. Her wrists were free, and she held a weapon aimed directly at Zenith. Zenith turned to her, his tone amused. "Ah, Luna, I was wondering when you'd make your move." Luna didn't lower her weapon. "It's over, Zenith. The stone isn't yours." Zenith's mask seemed to glint in the dim light. "You still think you can stop me, don't you? Even after all we've been through." Jax's stomach dropped as the pieces fell into place. "Wait, you know him." Luna's eyes flicked to Jax, guilt and anger flashing across her face. "I used to work for him. He trained me, recruited me. But I left when I realized what SynthCorp was really doing." Zenith laughed coldly. "And yet here you are, still clinging to your misplaced ideals. How quaint." The tension in the room was unbearable. Jax glanced at the stone, its glow now pulsating rapidly. He didn't know why, but he could feel it urging him to act. "Luna," Jax called out, his voice shaking. "Is he the reason you left SynthCorp?" "Yes," she said without hesitation, her gaze locked on Zenith. "But I'm not running anymore." The final choice. Amid the chaos, Jax realized there was only one way to stop Zenith. He had to finish the melody and unleash the stone's full power. But there was a catch. He didn't know what would happen once he did. He turned to Luna. "If I finish the song, can we stop him?" Her expression softened. "Yes, but it's risky. The melody isn't just a weapon. It's a force of creation and destruction. If you don't play it perfectly, it could destroy everything." Jax hesitated, his fingers hovering over the instrument's keys. He looked at the rebels, at Orion, at Luna. They were all depending on him. Taking a deep breath, he placed his hands on the instrument and began to play. The room seemed to shift as the melody filled the air. The stone's glow intensified, its light spreading outward in waves. SynthCorp soldiers froze in their tracks, their weapons falling uselessly to the ground. Even Zenith seemed momentarily stunned. But the melody wasn't finished. The notes grew more complex, and Jax struggled to keep up. Sweat poured down his face as he poured every ounce of himself into the music. "Come on, Jax," Luna whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound. Finally, with one last triumphant chord, the melody reached its crescendo. The stone emitted a blinding light, and a powerful shockwave swept through the room. Zenith was thrown backward, his mask cracking as he hit the wall. The SynthCorp soldiers collapsed, their systems fried. As the light faded, Jax collapsed to his knees, the instrument slipping from his hands. The stone floated in the air for a moment before settling back onto the console, its glow dimming to a faint pulse. Orion helped Jax to his feet. "You did it, kid." Jax looked around, dazed. What happens now?" Luna approached him, a small smile on her face. Now we make sure this never happens again. But Jax couldn't shake the feeling that the stone's story wasn't over. And neither was his. The cosmic melody, the aftermath of the stone's power, hung heavy in the air. The Nexus core was eerily silent, save for the faint hum of the cosmic harmony stone as it rested on the console. Synth-Corp's forces had been neutralized, their soldiers either incapacitated or retreating. But Jax Nova felt no relief. The energy he had unleashed still lingered, as though the stone itself was alive and waiting for something more. Luna approached him cautiously, her weapon lowered but her guard still up. Her face was a mix of exhaustion and determination. "Jax," she said softly, "we need to finish this. The stone's power isn't stable. It's still connected to the source, and if we don't sever the link, Synth-Corp will find another way to exploit it." Jax nodded, though his hands were trembling. The music he had played had pushed him to his limits, and yet he knew this wasn't the end. "The map," he said, gesturing to the holographic projection above the console. "It showed coordinates. That's where we need to go, right?" Luna nodded. "Yes. The source of the stone's power is out there. If we can reach it, we can shut it down for good." Orion, still holding his glowing bass weapon, joined them. "Getting there isn't the problem. Surviving once we do, that's another story." "Surviving what?" Jax asked, looking between them. "The source," Orion said grimly. "It's not just a place. It's alive. It's an ancient intelligence, older than any civilization we know. The stone is a fragment of its essence, and if we disrupt it, well, let's just say it won't go quietly." Jax's throat went dry. "And we're just going to walk into that?" "It's the only way," Luna said firmly. "You're the only one who can control the melody. The stone chose you for a reason." Jax didn't feel chosen. He felt terrified. But as he looked around the ruined Nexus core, at the rebels who had fought so hard to protect their home, he realized he didn't have a choice. This was bigger than him, bigger than any of them. The journey to the source. The starship they used to leave the haven was a patchwork of old and new technology, its engines humming with a melody-powered core. As they ascended into the endless expanse of space, Jax stared out the window at the stars, his mind racing. The stone sat on a pedestal in the center of the ship's control room, glowing faintly as if it were guiding them. "Hey," Luna said, sitting beside him. "You okay?" Jax shrugged. "Not really. I mean, I'm a musician, Luna. I was supposed to write songs, play gigs, maybe make a name for myself. Not whatever this is." She smiled faintly. "I get it. I didn't choose this life, either. But sometimes the universe has other plans." Jax looked at her. "Do you think we can really stop it? The source, I mean." Luna's expression darkened. "I don't know. But I do know that if we don't try, Synth-Corp will destroy everything. We can't let that happen." Their conversation was cut short by the ship's eye, a smooth, synthesized voice that echoed through the cabin. "Approaching coordinates. Energy readings are off the charts. Prepare for turbulence." The ship shuddered as it entered a region of space unlike anything Jax had ever seen. The stars seemed to bend and twist, their light refracting like ripples on water. In the distance, a massive structure loomed, a swirling vortex of light and energy, pulsing with the same rhythm as the stone. "That's it," Luna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The source. The source awakens." As the ship drew closer, the stone began to glow brighter, its pulses growing faster. The air inside the cabin seemed to vibrate with an invisible energy. Jax could feel it in his chest, a deep resonance that tugged at his very being. "This is insane," Orion muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. "The closer we get, the stronger it gets. We need to move fast." The ship docked on a platform that extended from the vortex, its surface shimmering like liquid glass. Jax, Luna, and Orion stepped out cautiously, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. The stone floated out of Jax's backpack, as if drawn toward the vortex. "Stay close," Luna said, her eyes scanning the area. "We don't know what we're dealing with." As they approached the vortex, a deep, resonant voice filled the air. It wasn't coming from any one direction. It was everywhere, surrounding them. "You have brought my fragment home." Jax froze. Did that thing just talk?" "It's the source," Luna said, her voice trembling. "It's aware." The vortex shifted, and a massive, glowing figure emerged, a being of pure light, its form constantly shifting and changing. It gazed at them with an intensity that made Jax's knees weak. "Why have you come?" the being asked. Jax swallowed hard, stepping forward despite his fear. "We came to stop this. The stone, your power. Synthcorp is trying to use it to destroy everything." The being's light dimmed slightly, as if in contemplation. "My power is neither good nor evil. It is simply creation. If your kind cannot control it, then it will destroy you." "We don't want it," Luna said. "We want to shut it down, to stop anyone from using it." The being tilted its head. "You wish to sever the connection?" "Yes," Jax said, his voice steadying. "But I don't know how." The being extended a hand, and the stone floated toward it. "You must play the final melody. It will return the fragment to me, but be warned. The melody will demand everything from you." "Everything?" Jax asked, his stomach sinking. "What does that mean?" "You will know when the time comes," the being said simply. "The final melody." Jax stepped forward, the strange instrument appearing in his hands once more. He glanced at Luna and Orion, who nodded encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, he began to play. The melody was unlike anything he had ever heard, complex, powerful, and infinite. As the notes filled the air, the stone glowed brighter, its light merging with the vortex. The energy around them grew intense, and Jax felt as though his very soul was being poured into the music. The being watched silently as the melody reached its climax. With one final chord, the stone dissolved into pure light, merging completely with the source. The vortex pulsed once, then collapsed inward, disappearing into nothingness. Jax fell to his knees, exhausted but alive. The weight of the stone was gone, and the air was still. "It's over," Luna said, her voice filled with awe. "You did it, Jax." Jax looked up at her, a faint smile on his lips. "Didn't think I had it in me." Orion helped him to his feet. "You've got more in you than you realize, kid." As they returned to the ship, Jax felt a strange sense of peace. The stone was gone, its power finally at rest. And though the journey had changed him, he knew one thing for certain. The melody of the universe would never be the same.